And that's a good question. And I think when we respond to biases or biases we don't like, there are a couple of different responses. One is to criticize them, and that's usually what we should do. If there's someone that has a bias that you don't like, what you should do is you criticize them and not try to prevent them from expressing their point of view, like the guy who threw away my newspapers, who I'm still mad at. But there's what you have to do, and there are only certain limited cases where you go in and you regulate what people do, and you regulate their expression of bias. And it's not because of their bias, it's because they're violating someone else's rights, whether it's throwing away their newspapers or shouting down speakers or giving students a bad grade for political reasons or refusing to hire somebody and firing them for political reasons. Those are in my mind, those kind of places where you need to intervene. Now, it depends on the circumstance, of course. I am a great believer in, and I know this is going to shock people, in private property rights. And so I don't believe that in general, private universities should be forced by the federal government to respect academic freedom or anything. But I do believe that private universities that violate rights should be subject to criticism. And that applies to all universities, in my view, including ones that are fundamentalists. There's nothing wrong with being a fundamentalist. You're free to be a fundamentalist. The problem is when a university imposes fundamentalism on its students and faculty, when it has what are the most restrictive speech codes in America, which are at conservative religious colleges, that impose very particular demands on beliefs and behavior. I believe that what a college should do, if it wants to be a fundamentalist college, it can express its fundamentalism, it can advocate for fundamentalism, it can try and recruit fundamentalists, but it should not fire people who dissent from fundamentalism. And quite frankly, I think we need to do more to defend the rights of fundamentalist students and professors at religious colleges and universities who are the most frequently victimized by violations of academic freedom. It's not always because they disagree ideologically, but often if you're a professor at a religious college that doesn't have a lot of respect for academic freedom, or student where there are these harsh speech codes, and you criticize the administration, whatever the reason you're doing it, you're quite likely to be punished by the administration because they have this hierarchical attitude and they have this propensity of thinking they can force their views on people. And so I think we need to especially criticize those universities, not have the government regulate them and not make them subject to litigation, but just subject to our moral criticism that all universities should defend these rights. And it's not something to me that threatens the diversity of ideas, the ability of different universities to have different values. To me, the analogy is like democracy across the world. I think all of us should support the idea that every country should be a free democratic state. Now, some people might say, well, don't you believe in diversity of ideas and we should have different states, some of them free and some of them repressive communist states? And I would say, no, we don't really want diversity of countries like that. We can still have diversity. There are plenty of free democratic states that speak different languages, have different cultures, have all sorts of diversity, but they still believe in freedom and diversity of ideas. And I think that's what we need to have on universities as well, including the fundamentalist religious universities, as well as the secular liberal universities. That, to me, is the model we have to have.
Yes, if you are private, you should have that right. I would have put the same question, though. The thing is, with those schools, they lay out a very clear mission statement. You see it before you go in. You know what liberty is about. They're not ambiguous at all. Or Christendom, or Patrick Henry, or Thomas Aquinas. Go look at Georgetown's website. It's like the bells of St. Mary's. Go to Georgetown's campus. It's MTV tryouts. That's the kind of dichotomy we're looking at.